Hi, everybody, and welcome to Teaching Tip Tuesday, brought to you by the Center for Inclusive Teaching and Learning here at UWSP. This week, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about learning outcomes. According to the UWSP handbook, your syllabus needs to have a clear statement of the learning outcomes for your course. For some instructors, that's as far as the consideration of learning outcomes goes. But here at CITL, learning outcomes are our bread and butter. Not only do we think that they should be present in your syllabus, we think that they should be central to the organization and design of your course. As such, making sure that your learning outcomes are written in a student-centered, accessible way is vital to the success of your course. So, there's never a bad time to review the practices associated with writing effective learning outcomes. Learning outcomes are the articulation of knowledge, skills, and dispositions that we want students to achieve as a result of taking our courses. You can think of the course as the platform you're providing to students so that they can achieve the learning outcomes. They have an important function in making it transparent to the students what you expect them to get from the course. They're the learning targets that students need to hit in order to be successful. But they're more than just that. They detail aspects of learning that you, as the instructor, are going to measure. You should want to know how well students are achieving the learning outcomes you've defined so that you can better evaluate what students are learning and what they are not. This measurement allows you to see what's working in the class, that is, what's helping the students to achieve the learning outcomes and what's not working. This is a necessary first step in making informed decisions about what to change in the course and what to leave as it is. The final function of learning outcomes is related to providing accountability to programs, especially majors and the GEP. How well students are achieving some of the learning outcomes in your course isn't just a matter between you and your students. Other entities at UWSP have a vested interest in specific learning goals and whether or not students are achieving them. All of this makes it essential that your learning outcomes are both accessible and student-centered. So how can we write such outcomes? We need to make sure that the words chosen for our learning outcomes indicate something that can be measured. That means it is accessible. And that the word indicates what students must do to demonstrate their learning. That is the student-centered part. We can accomplish both by choosing our action words from Bloom's Taxonomy and using only one action word for each learning outcome. So what exactly do we mean when we talk about Bloom's Taxonomy? Back in the 1950s, Bloom produced a hierarchical taxonomy to describe the complexity of different kinds of learning. This was modified in 2001 by Anderson et al. And made infinitely more useful. When we discuss Bloom's taxonomy, we're referring to a series of hierarchical models that classify learning complexity. There are 3 domains of learning covered by these models. The cognitive domain deals with knowledge-based learning. Most of the learning outcomes we use in college courses are seated in this domain. The affective domain deals with attitudes, emotions, and feelings. When we talk about dispositional learning outcomes, we're talking about outcomes described by this portion of the model. Finally, there's the psychomotor domain. This domain touches on physical skills and isn't as prevalent in college education as the cognitive and affective domains. Because they're used more frequently in higher ed, let's take a moment to look at the cognitive and affective domains of Bloom's taxonomy. This diagram of the cognitive domain of Bloom's taxonomy is one that I particularly like. In this depiction, complexity of a learning task is indicated by the size of the circle. The more complex, the bigger the circle. But what I really like is that the less complex forms of learning are shown as nested within the more complex. I think this depicts how learning actually works. Higher levels of learning are synthetic and require putting together components from lower levels. Note that each of the levels progressing in complexity from knowledge to understanding, then application, analysis, evaluation, and ultimately creation of new knowledge is associated with a number of specific, measurable actions that might be indicated in a learning outcome. When writing a learning outcome, you should specify the highest level of learning complexity expected as your course learning outcome. You can then break your course learning outcomes down into baby steps or criteria for mastery. Be sure to specify all of the less complex forms of learning that students must master and put together in order to achieve the course learning outcome. These criteria or baby steps may be used as lesson-level learning outcomes or on rubrics as the component knowledge and skills that students need to demonstrate to show that they've achieved the learning outcome. Finally, be sure that the assessment tool you use to evaluate student achievement aligns with the action specified in the learning outcome. For example, if you want students to explain something, you can't measure their ability to do that using a multiple-choice exam. Your assessment should allow them to generate novel verbal constructs to demonstrate their ability to explain. Moving on to the affective domain, we see a straightforward hierarchy of dispositions. Because most instructors are less familiar with this hierarchy, I'll summarize each level. The basal level is receiving. Learners at this level should be able to demonstrate awareness of or openness to listening. This is often a passive form of learning, a passive openness. Notice that the action words deal with the learner's recognition of their emotional state. Responding is a more complex disposition. It's centered more on active participation of the learner. Learners who are responding should be able to react to particular stimuli. Note that the indicated action words measure response or satisfaction in having a response. The valuing level is one of the more commonly used dispositional learning outcomes in higher education. At this level, the learner attaches some value to a particular object, phenomenon, or knowledge. This is based on the internalization of a set of specified values. The measurable actions associated with valuing deal with the expression of valuation. At the organizing level, the learner is able to combine different values, information, and ideas and can accommodate them within their own value system, patterns of thoughts, and prioritization. This involves comparing, relating, and synthesizing values. The action words associated with this level of the hierarchy focus on application and synthesis of values. Finally, the highest level is characterizing. The learner at this level has a value system that controls their behavior so that the values are integrated into their behaviors. Behaviors are pervasive, consistent, predictable, and characteristic of the learner. Notice that the action words here are associated with the student's personal, social, and emotional enactment of values. Because most effective learning goals deal with the internal state of the learner, they're more difficult to measure directly than those in the cognitive domain. So, ensuring that the assessment tool and the action word in the learning outcome align can be tricky. Lower levels of effective learning are often measured only in the articulation of the values and dispositions of the learners. It's important to specify for the learners what criteria you'll be looking at in their answers to prompts as indication of mastery of the learning outcome. In other words, have a good rubric. The highest levels of effective taxonomy are manifest in behavioral changes that should be directly measurable, but only assessed in observing the student's behavior. Remember, writing student-centered, accessible learning outcomes promotes learning and allows effective evaluation of the learning platform. And that's this week's teaching tip, brought to you by the Center for Inclusive Teaching and Learning at UWSP, your one-stop shop for teaching support. Visit our website to schedule a consultation for help with course design, learning activities, assessment, or pedagogy.